of learning are managed as one institution, contrary to Part 2.9 of the 4th schedule of the Constitution. The Working Party further recommends that the Ministry of Education recruit staff for special needs education institutions and hard staff areas. This recommendation will be contrary to the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, further, that the Presidential Working Party gives now powers to the Teacher Service Commission to employ chaplains and imams in schools. This is in direct conflict of Article 9 of the Constitution, which separates the state and religion, and therefore removes the powers of sponsors in the schools, replacing it with Teacher Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, I could go on, but let me stop there and indicate that, Speaker, the business of lawmaking is a reserve of Parliament under Article 109 of the Constitution. As it stands, there's a crisis in the education system with education organs and players existing before the 2010 Constitution intending to seize power within the education sector, given these proposals. Honorable Speaker, I want to seek your guidance that this matter be handled by the House so that people do not change the Constitution and the acts of Parliament through the back door. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Chepkonga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to agree with Honorable Milemba. He's raising a very pertinent issue, very important issue to this country. One, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the Presidential Working Party recommendations remain recommendations until it is reduced into a bill which is brought to this House. Or two, it is reduced into a regulation which is brought to this House and committed to a committee. Mr. Speaker, there is a trend in this country where recommendations are made by committees that are appointed, and they are implemented by passing this House, Mr. Speaker. And it has a force of law. Mr. Speaker, we would like you to pronounce yourself on these matters that are being implemented on the basis of recommendation, Mr. Speaker. And it is expected that people should obey them. Mr. Speaker, the work of a member of Parliament, one of the cardinal roles of a member of Parliament is legislation. We don't expect any other person who has not been elected by anyone, Mr. Speaker, to make law. That is in contravention of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Article 95 is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that there is no person who can make any law or who can pronounce himself on anything that has a force of law except this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I see the Honorable Milemba belaboring this point. This is a matter, Mr. Speaker, which you should issue sweeping decision from this House, from your chair, Mr. Speaker, that there is nobody in this country, however high and mighty they may think they are, including the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker, they cannot make regulations or make recommendations and expect, like for instance, this one of the recommendations of the Working Party, Mr. Speaker. You cannot implement those regulations before you bring them to the House. It has an implication. There are laws in this country which govern that particular area. You need to come and amend them. Like the other one, Mr. Speaker, the other day, on the roads, on Kenya Roads Board, they purportedly...
That you are anticipating debate.
No, sorry, Mr. Speaker. I was just giving an example. Yes, I was just making a reference to it, Mr. Speaker, as just an example. But, Mr. Speaker, what we do not want to see as a House, Mr. Speaker, is where people don't believe in the rule of law. I attended the UK conference on the rule of law about 8 years ago. They were celebrating their 800 years, Mr. Speaker, of the rule of law. We should also be able to celebrate the rule of law in this country, where everybody follows the law. You know, what we have seen in this country, Mr. Speaker, we have seen you know, there's been this principle of tax avoidance and tax evasion. In fact, in this country, Mr. Speaker, we have seen law evasion. People avoiding to follow the law, avoiding to come up with bills to this house. So, Mr. Speaker, we would like to request, and in support of the Honorable Milemba, that you pronounce it yourself, that the recommendations remain recommendations, unless they have a different English dictionary, which they are using, Mr. Speaker. Then they should amend that dictionary to say that the recommendations includes also law. But at the moment, Mr. Speaker, it remains recommendations. And it can gather dust wherever they are until they bring it here to this house. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.